I mean, like I tell people, like I went there to make a bunch of money, and he ended up saving my relationship with my mom, which I'm forever grateful for. And then, yeah, in the process, I come back and it's shifted my life professionally a lot. But yeah, it made a huge impact on me. Tony Robbins in his events, he talks about how we're driven all by 6 basic human needs. And yeah, most people have 2 needs that matter the most to them. And I realized that for me, in business is conflict. A sales conversation is conflict. And what's happening in any conflict is both parties are OODA looping.
Brandon, when you were an account executive at Trendkite, you missed quota 4 out of 5 months and you were about to get fired. But then you turned things around and you became the #1 account executive at the company at the time. And you went on even to become a CEO of Job Machine. It's crazy how things transformed for you. And we're having a conversation. You said that a Tony Robbins seminar played a part in that. So let's start there. What happened at that seminar? Was it a paradigm shift, a breakthrough in the moment? Was it a gradual learning process and follow through after the fact? How did it transform your career and really your life?
Yeah, Chris, it was, that was a really challenging and transformative time for me. I had previously at the company I'd worked at before, been very successful as a salesperson. I had never missed a quota ever. And even at Trendkite, I came out of the gates pretty hot. I was the fastest on my team to ramp. I was performing really well, and then I had a coach. There was one of the managers there. I switched onto his team, and he helped me learn how to grow from being a transactional seller to a more like solution seller or enterprise seller. And for a number of reasons, I struggled mightily for a few months, and I was, as you said, about to get fired. And I ended up getting invited to a Tony Robbins event. Both of the founders of that company love Tony Robbins. One of them had quit his job and to go start the company that I was working at right after he went to a Tony Robbins event. And he had just had his first kid. Like at the time when you would not expect someone to take risk, he went full risk on. So I went to a Tony Robbins event, and it proved to be really transformational. I ended up going to that, and I came back from the event, and not only did I hit quota, I broke the record for sales closed by an account executive the following month, hit top rep, and I got promoted. And in the preceding year afterwards, when I left the company, I was the active all-time top seller.
Wow. So let's unpack what happened. Was it like a paradigm shift in the moment, some like breakthrough in your perception of yourself or how things worked? Was it certain principles you took away that you translated into action? Maybe both, but what was it from that seminar that you were able to use to convert into like crazy results?
Yeah, I would delineate between 2 different things. I mean, if you want to go and you want to sell larger deals to bigger customers, bigger companies, selling across like a number of different people across a larger organization. I mean, there's different tactics and there's processes that you're going to need in order to sell differently. And I didn't necessarily learn that at Tony Robbins. My mentor at the time, Garrett, and another a top seller at another company here in Austin were really helpful. And I grew into those, and I was doing all of those things the right way. The big missing gaps were really twofold. The first thing was just general head trash. It's one thing. It's not that hard to continue to have a good attitude about selling when you're winning. When you're losing, it can be challenging. And that was one of the things that I learned how to work through there. And the second gap was around. The second gap. I'd say the second gap was really about like where my energy was focused, because if you think about where a lot of people, certainly myself at that time in my career, when I'd focus on selling, I was usually focused on hitting a goal, being #1, making money, which there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But that being said, what I wasn't focused on, it's certainly not primarily, and when I was struggling, which at that time I was my customer and the people that I was there to serve. Because you think about selling, and this is a big Tony Robbins thing, or any type of influence, because most people, I don't think, would identify as a salesperson. The reality is we are all salespeople. Anytime that you're advocating for yourself, you're looking to get a job, or you're looking to um, negotiate your child to to go do this thing, or your spouse or whatever, um, you're influencing them. And you know, and really, like, if you want to influence somebody, if all you're focused on is yourself, it's going to be a lot harder to get them to do something that you believe is going to be in their best interest and everybody's best interest. If you're focused on you, as opposed to if you just really like, if you really like think about who is it that I'm trying to serve, how is their life going to be better or positively impacted through the solution that I have that's going to help them in their organizational and make them look better to their boss, help them get promoted. Then if you're like, I need to close this deal, I hope they say yes so that I hit goal, or so that I hit top rep or whatever. And at that event, I mean, one of the real big things that I learned about myself, Tony Robbins in his events, he talks about how we're driven all by 6 basic human needs. And most people have 2 needs that matter the most to them. And I realized that for me, similar to a lot of people, I was one of the 6 basic needs are certainty or security, uncertainty or variety, and then connection, or the higher version of connection, which is love, and the significance or ego. And then you've got the 2 needs of the soul, which are growth and contribution. And even though I was a pretty growth oriented person, like, at the time, like when I was losing in that instant, I was very certainty focused because I didn't have a lot of certainty. I was about to get fired. And I felt very insignificant because I was used to being the best at what I did, and I was one of the worst. So that was really challenging at the time. And what I learned at the event was how destructive being focused on security and being focused on significance, basically being focused on yourself, are when you're in a role where you're essentially compensated on your ability to serve other people, which is what sales is. So what Tony Robbins does really well is he basically helps you consciously understand and become aware of where you're at. And then if you choose to shift it, essentially hypnotize yourself into walking into a new and more effective identity that's closer to your true self, which for me was really being focused on growing as much as possible, being the best version that I could in order to serve other people and contribute. And when I made that shift, it shifted things massively for me. I got on the calls when I came back from that trip, and I'd just be like, hey, how do I help you guys? I want to make sure that you all are totally comfortable, totally confident this is the right solution for you. And if it's not, then that's totally fine. But what we're going to do on this call is we're going to uncover these things and make sure that we're doing an effective job of serving you. And if not, I'm going to point you to whatever I think will serve you. So that shift was massive. And if you notice, these 2 things kind of interplay with each other. I realized that I spent a lot more time thinking about the things that I didn't have than the things that I did have. So you spend a lot of time at these Tony Robbins events, like thinking about the things that you're grateful for, and being focused on the things in the present that are going well. One of my close friends, he has a saying and a mantra that I've adopted, which is that my life is easy, only good things happen to me. And there's two different things happen to 2 different people, and they have totally different experiences. I'll give you an example for my situation at the time back in the early summer of 2016 when I went to that event. I walked into that event. I was like, woe is me. All these things are unfair at this job. I can't believe that I'm like on the brink of getting fired. This is hard. I can't believe my life and sales career and trajectory were going so well, and now they're not. And I shifted from that to going to this event, and nothing changed except my perspective and the things I was focusing on, the way I talked about it to myself. And it went from that to, oh my goodness, like I am so blessed. I live in the greatest country on earth in the history of the world. I have all this opportunity. I have air conditioning. I have people around me who are supporting me and giving me an opportunity to grow and to learn. And I'm in a position where like I have all this pipeline, all these things are going well. I just have to focus on what I'm grateful for and focus on serving other people, and everything's going to work out. And those differences made a drastic shift for me.
How do you think you came across to the prospect once you had this shift in perspective focused on them? I'm sure your energy shifted too. Like, how do you think they perceived you?
Oh, I mean, the people in the office perceived it differently. Everyone, I came back and people were like, man, Brandon's a different person. I was a lot, I think, easier to be around.
If you're an SDR or account executive who's fresh in your role and you're trying to get off to a hot start, or a seller who's trying to turn things around and you want to crush your metrics and up level to your next promotion, then consider booking time with me at my Calendly link linked in the description of this video. Because my Tech Sales Accelerator coaching programs have been helping SDRs and account executives in big tech at Oracle, AWS, Databricks, and in the startup world crush their quota and up level in their career. Book some time and we'll map out a plan to hit your unique tech sales goals. All right, let's get back to the episode. I don't know. Have you always been like a passionate, energetic guy? And did your like energy state raise? Because I don't know. I've heard Tony say that like if you get in a certain state, like your emotional state can shift things like that. So, I guess, when I was at Google, I had a peer Jace that I did my own leadership seminar called Landmark, and I was described as intense, which may be not always good, but I'm just curious to probe a little more into the. Did anyone give you specific feedback on your kind of your energy and how you came across?
Yeah, there was. I love books on sales. I love video courses on sales. I've consumed a lot of all of the above over the last decade and a half, and I think the best sales course I've ever used was Tony Robbins. I think it's called Mastering Influence course. I've listened to that start to finish, all 6 or 7 hours of it, at least 6 times, start to finish, maybe more. And one of the things that he talks about is matching people's communication styles. He talks about how people communicate, they're either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. And visual is the way that I might, if I didn't put thought into it, would communicate, where you're talking kind of like this and things are really quick and you're excited and you're not necessarily speaking very slowly. The visual, a lot of people from the Northeast tend to communicate like that. And by the way, some people love communicating that way. And if you speak more slowly like this and you're a little more thoughtful, then if you talk like the way I just did to someone who's visual, they're going to think you're stupid. Now, some of the most intelligent people in the world speak very slowly, but that's just, some people are kind of conditioned and programmed to talk that way. Whereas there's also auditory, which is somewhere in the middle. And, like people from the South tend to be a little more kinesthetic. And again, so much of like the way and the reasons behind how you communicate, A, it can help you do that more naturally, and B, it comes across differently. Because if you're, I heard it said once that the only difference between influence and manipulation is the intent. So we're all influenced people all the time, but if you're looking to like take something from someone or hurt them or do something that helps you but doesn't help them, you're manipulating, and that's evil. It's wrong. You shouldn't do that. But if my goal is to influence someone to make a decision like buying something that I believe is going to massively transform their life or their organization, then like I want to serve them effectively. In order to serve them effectively, it's very helpful to communicate in a manner that's congruent with the way that they like people to talk to them and gives them time to think and to process through things. And that's something that Tony talks about in depth in his sales course. And I would do that sometimes on calls. I think at the time I probably consumed a lot more caffeine too. So which tends to make people more apt to speak quickly. But no, I think again, when you focus on other people, you're paying more attention to their emotions and their needs, both business needs as well as their emotional needs. And I think that both myself and a lot of other people naturally are going to match and mirror people more effectively when they approach with that servant and that like I'm going to help this person mindset.
So here's my takeaway. I was asking you, kind of fishing for, did your energy increase, blah, blah, blah. And you probably did overall, like you felt great in a good emotional state, but you reminded us all of one of the most important principles in sales that Tony reinforced for you, which is mirroring and matching others, communicating in the way that they want to be communicated with. So if they speak slowly and they have low energy, it's better to meet them there than being intense. So I love that you reminded us of a critical sales principle. And more than, oh, did your emotions change? It was your intent that changed. It was coming from a place of service, getting off yourself. And I was going to quote this earlier, but Jim Rohn, who I know he was Tony Robbins' mentor, and I've been listening to him a lot lately. He says, if you want to get whatever you want to get in life, help more people get what they want to get. And so it really reminds me of what you're talking about. Help others, then you'll get what you want as a byproduct. By the way, I don't know that I quoted that exactly in the right wording order, but that's the gist. So I wanted to pivot back to the head trash. I thought that was a really cool metaphor. It sounds like you were able to throw that out and it caused a breakthrough for you. And I don't know that we got into it yet because we had a one-off conversation that I really enjoyed. So I think we might have gotten into it in the one-off. But what did cleaning out the head trash look like for you? Like what was your head trash, if you're open to sharing, and like what step did you take to throw it out?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the main things was just having kind of a victim mentality about life, and that looks different for everybody. For me, I mean, at the time, I remember being, how old was I then? I guess 26 years old, and when I was 22, I had a very different picture of what my life was going to look like by the time that I was 26. I thought I would have accomplished a lot more. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't doing that. I couldn't even figure out how to like hit quota in a mid-market sales role. Um, so that was really frustrating. And I had a lot of thoughts about, man, my upbringing, the way that I was raised, the way that the school that I went to or didn't go to, and all these things. And I had a story that I was telling myself as to why I wasn't successful. And yeah, I remember going to that event and and realizing that so many of the things that I like looked at, I was like, oh, my life is terrible because of these things. It's and I was watching like videos of Michael Jordan the other weekend, not videos of him playing basketball. I mean, videos of him talking about winning, and he's got such a great many aspects of his philosophy. I think are incredibly powerful. And one of the things he talks about is that he doesn't believe in regret because you can't have, and he thinks loss is great because you can't have the wins without the losses. And so many of the things that we perceive as this is the reason I can't X, Y, and Z, those are actually the things that set you up for success. So for instance, I was homeschooled like back in the 90s before it was cool. And I remember being made fun of because I was homeschooled, and I'm still a quirky guy, like and like it
My
earlier in
kind of
life
guy.
earlier in life I was probably even quirkier. And I remember thinking, oh, this is the reason that like I ended up not going to an Ivy League school. I even had really good test scores, but I didn't even realize that going to an Ivy League school was a good thing to do. I just wanted to get out of my parents' house. So I went to a good liberal arts school, actually a great liberal arts school that most people haven't heard of. And I didn't become an investment banker. I didn't go into consulting. I didn't do these things that like people generally perceive as like, this is what success looks like. But what I realized just through like thinking about it is that, well, the reason that I ended up in tech sales in Austin of all places, that one of the best times ever to be in a place doing a thing. I mean, there's so much opportunity right now in Austin in tech sales. And
Yes.
in 2014, when I moved there, was one of the best times to be making that jump. And of all the places and all the careers that you could have gone into in any given point in time, like that place and that time doing that thing, incredible. And it's because I had a non-conventional path, And if I would have gone to some big school, I probably would have done what I was supposed to and done what was supposedly successful. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people making a huge impact, making a ton of money, doing all those things. I also really like the life path that I'm on, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And that happened because of the fact that I was homeschooled. And the reason that I want to be an entrepreneur is because, like like I think that some people, I don't know what it's like because I didn't go to public school, but a lot of people I know go to public school and went there. Whether they're that way or not, they were taught to think inside the box and do things a certain way. I was taught that there is no box. And, like my literature my literature course for like a couple of years growing up was like, here's a box of books, go read these. And yeah, I just had I got a, this is something that I used to be angry about, the fact that like my parents homeschooled me. Now I look back and I'm like, thank goodness, like I got homeschooled. It's probably one of the single greatest gifts my parents gave me, and they gave me many in the way that I was raised. But I mean, that perspective really shifted. I mean, perfectly honest with you, one of the things that I was really bitter about is that I had a challenging relationship with my mom, especially in my high school years. I'm the oldest of six kids, and I had I live in I'm in America. I didn't have that much responsibility, but I had a lot of stuff that I was taking care of. My dad was working in the Pentagon during the Second Gulf War, and we were also building a house all at the same time. And we had a lot of conflict. I ended up running away from home when I was 15, like overnight. Like I was
Wow.
headed to a bus stop to go
Dude, your
go to
life's like a
Arizona.
movie.
I'm an intense person, man. Um, Thankfully, I didn't go to Arizona, but yeah, I was really, yeah, I kind of moved out of my parents' house emotionally when I was 15, and started working a bunch of part-time jobs. Another benefit of being homeschooled, and yeah, I ended up. I was just kind of bitter at my mom for a long time. For the next like 9 years, my mom's the sweetest person ever. And she would always reach out, try to talk to me, and I would talk to her sometimes, but I just wasn't very like, I just didn't make a lot of space for her in my life, and I was just angry about it. And I realized at that event, I went to that Tony Robbins event to figure out how to make money and not get fired, but it ended up staying my relationship with my mom, and I realized that my mother had a very intense mother, even more intense than she is, and my mom was doing the best that she had with what she was given, and she was an incredible mom, and she loved me deeply. And the reason that she raised me the way that she did is because she cared about me. And the only person at that point who was in the wrong was me for holding on to this bitterness. So I ended up forgiving her. I actually called her and apologized. And yeah, I mean, it changed my relationship with my mom forever. Like we've been super close ever since, not without hurdles, but my mom and I are super close now. And yeah, so he like, like like I tell people, like I went there to make a bunch of money, and he ended up saving my relationship with my mom, which I'm forever grateful for. And then yeah, in the process, I come back and it's shifted my life professionally a lot. But yeah, it made a huge impact on me.
Very powerful, and I relate to it, going through my own seminar and really saving my relationship with my father. And save it maybe isn't the right word, transforming it. And I held on to some bitterness and resentment for my own reasons, and I realized I was playing the victim, and I finally gave that up. And I did make a call as well. So I just remember this feeling in my gut, like butterflies, like I'm truly responsible for my life now. I can't blame this for my anxiety or my issues. And it just caused such a transformation. So cool to see that, there's some overlaps in our journeys. And thank you for sharing a couple really good examples of clearing out head trash. Because I know there's people in the audience that probably carry around similar head trash, and maybe this is the opportunity for them to have that aha moment and create a breakthrough. So I wanted to ask you one more question related to Tony Robbins' sales program, just kind of fishing for, anything else in terms of golden nuggets, just like the mirroring, a prospect that you gain from Tony Robbins' sales program that you think, the audience should know that really helped you, especially in an account executive role.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of nuggets in there. I think more like, if you don't mind, I think like one of the other like, key things when I think about how I sell and the way that I work to serve my customers, is isn't necessarily a thing in the Tony Robbins course, but it's something that a close friend of mine, mentor, taught me years ago that has stuck with me over the years. And because I think a lot of your audience are in tech sales, that's where they're working.
Yep. And I'll always feel welcome to course correct or adjust. This is your show. And I love it when someone says, hey, I actually want to focus on this. So let's hear what your mentor taught you that really made a big impact.
Yeah, well, it's your show. I'm here to serve your audience, man. But yeah, one of the things they've been really, really helpful for me is I think it's super important to make sure that whoever you're talking to, you understand, like what is the what are the key metrics that matter to them? Because especially when you're selling to people at organizations, most people in leadership have one or five different metrics that matter to them, and that's what they're evaluated on. And so much of success, it's not about demoing the right way. Like running a demo is fine, but it's a very small piece of it. All the demo is a tool to connect widget that you have to solve to solve a problem to metrics that they care about. And the more that you can like associate to them and know like a strong logical case, like assuming you truly believe that it will fix that thing or improve that metric, when you can connect what you have with what they care about, that's the single most important thing that you can do. Because once they get if what you do can truly like impact that, like, those key metrics that matter to them, then like, I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how much.
So one more sales question popped in my head because you told me that you made 600 or not 600,000, 60,000 cold calls in that range, which is crazy. So just high level, man, some nuggets of like what helped you be an effective cold caller.
Yeah, that wasn't my first job. I've made over 100,000 cold calls.
Oh, oh wow. Okay. That is a good number. Six digits right there.
Yeah, man. I've definitely made a lot of cold calls. I'm really grateful that my first sales job in Austin was at a company where we didn't send cold emails. We just smiled and dialed. And I remember like, I think my all-time high on a day was like 272 calls. And by the way, we didn't have an auto dialer. These are in the days of you were either like using like a physical phone that you'd pick up and you dial on, or you could like click to dial. But it didn't just like automatically do the next one. You had to do those manually.
Wait, hold on real quick, just before we even get into like the overall tips. It's like, one thing is, how did you make that volume of calls, especially because you didn't have like auto dialer or like Orem, you know, like a power dialer? Like, how did you must have just been so locked in. How many hours did it take? Like, how do you pull that off, that volume?
As many as it took. We weren't allowed to leave the office unless you had 3 hours of talk time or 150 cold calls. Yeah, and if you had a couple of demos, you better have good talk time on those. Otherwise, you're going to be making a lot of dials. Yeah, you just did it. I mean, I would work to be the first person in, the last person out, and I was just determined to do whatever it took to be the best at that organization.
So one thing I got to interject is going back to Jim Rohn. I'm on a Jim Rohn kick. His mentor, Mr. Shoaf, as he says in all the videos I hear, said, Jim, you don't lack intelligence or talent, you lack reasons. And if you have the right reasons, you'll do whatever it takes. And you said you did whatever it took. So I'm just curious, man, like, what were your reasons at the time that compelled you to do that level of work? Was it just like your identity? Like, I'm just wired to be great. Like, this is who I am. I can't not. Or was there another like reason or driver that pulled you to do it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, man. I've always been very focused on what mattered to me. Making money and being successful in business didn't really matter to me until I graduated from college and got to experience what it was like being poor. I was waiting tables and living in my parents' basement right after college, and it was a fairly unpleasant experience for me. I didn't like being stuck at home.
Yeah.
And yeah, I read a book by the guy that created Jim Rohn and all these people. It was a book by Napoleon Hill called The Law of Success in 16 Lessons, which is the precursor. Can you say that
one more time? Because I think I was reacting, and I overtook you because I was interested.
It's all good.
Can you say the name one more time?
Yeah, it's The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. And it's the precursor to Think and Grow Rich, which is it's a condensed version of The Law of Success, and it's less hippy dippy, but Law of Success is a dense book, but it's incredible. And one of the things that it taught me is that all that money is it's a measure, assuming you've made it ethically, it's the measure of the amount of value you've created for your fellow man. So like it's a good thing to make lots of money. It shows that you're solving lots of problems for the people around you. I've got all this energy, man. I mean, I don't even drink coffee anymore. At least not right now. I don't know. people, I don't even think I'm that high energy, but some people tell me I'm
No,
high
you're
energy.
you're actually pretty chill, but I'm just reacting because I love that line. Like, you just, some people think making money is a bad thing, but it is a reflection of the value you contribute. So you should want to make more money. We should want people to make more money because that means we're giving more value.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some people, given the way that they were raised, if they're Christian, which I'm a Christian, but
Yep, me too.
yeah, some people, the way that we're like, a lot of people are raised in the 20th century, there's like a guilt. I call it Protestant guilt with making money, which I think is just wrong. I think it's actually like anti-biblical for those people that matters to. And then yeah, I think it can be cope for other people. Like I think it's a poisonous idea that like money's a bad thing. When we live in a system, we're assuming people are being ethical, right? The assumption here is we live in a high trust society, which isn't the case always, but it's as far as I'm concerned with the people, the way that I operate and the people that I choose to do business with. Um, like I live in a high trust environment. Then like when you make money, you're helping people. So for me, I've got, I'm an intense person. I wanted to take this energy and direct it someplace positive. So I should go make money. And a lot of that book is about defining what Napoleon Hill refers to as a definite chief aim, and this vision you have of the future. And he has you think about like, what does your life look like? Ideally, what are the types of things that you're doing? What stuff do you have? Like, what experience have you created for those people that you love? And I got a good imagination. I wrote a bunch of stuff out, and I kind of did the math on how much would it cost to have and do all these things and create these experiences for people, cool stuff like my parents and my future family and all these, and like serving other people, like helping millions of other people, like, change their lives. And I was like, man, that's a big number. I have it written down. And I conditioned myself to believe that was not that it was possible, that it was going to happen. And I have this belief that if you want something and it's ethical, then that is like that right there. That is a sign from God that you are meant to have or acquire or achieve these things, and it's your mission. It's your mission and your mandate to go and be resourceful enough to go and create that in the world with the time that he's given you. So yeah, I mean, I had goals that I wrote down based on that, kind of taking like the ultimate objectives down to like, this is 10 years, it's 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. And I had a timeline. I had stuff I had to get done. So, like I would go and do those calls because I wasn't tracking towards the plan. So I was doing the work to get back on track.
Wow, you really put it in perspective, like what pulled you forward in terms of your goals and your clear vision to make, what is it, a couple hundred dials? One more time, how many, what was your record in a day?
Like 272.
Okay.
It got a lot easier as I got better at talking to people, which when you make that many dials, hopefully you do eventually. And I ultimately, I ended up with a lot more talk time than dials. But yeah, if you had less than 70 dials in a day, I mean, that was kind of weird.
I've heard it said early in your career, the best thing you can do is play the numbers game, and eventually volume leads to better skills. And so the only other thing on cold calling I want to fish for is, were there any particular skills or things you learned to do as you got really good that made you highly effective on the phones?
Yeah, well, I'll say this. There's two of my company now, Job Machine's core values are, one, force times leverage equals work. What that means is that I don't care if someone's making $300 a day. If they're not developing leverage, aka they're not improving their ability to like convert those dials into opportunity, then that's not impressive. That's just it's actually remarkably unimpressive. Like it's great to do it at first. If you're still doing that a year in, you're probably doing something wrong. And by the way, in the days of like Nooks where you can make like 500 dials because you got like 5 numbers calling for you, which I love those tools. It's different. I meant in that context.
Yes.
But by the way, if you are the most intelligent, smooth, charismatic person in the world, but you don't make any dials, that's also very unimpressive. But nothing impressive about a Mensa like 180 IQ person who's a taxi driver. That is wasted talent, and that's unimpressive.
Yeah.
The second core value that I think is relevant to this conversation right now is the concept of the OODA loop. OODA stands for observe, orient, decide, act. It's a little military term coined by a Air Force colonel named John Boyd. And he is one of the most brilliant military theorists in history. He's one of the best fighter pilots in history. And he actually designed the F-15, and two people that came under him designed both the A-10 Warthog, which is the best air-to-ground fighter, air-to-ground plane in modern, basically, ever history. And I think they also designed the F-18. But he also is thought by many to have been the one who planned our invasion into Iraq during the first Gulf War. And he probably saved 50 to 100,000 American lives because we were going to just go ground and pound right through to the enemy. But his principles and frameworks around what's called maneuver warfare, he had us, basically like make it seem like we're going to come in this way, but then draw the enemy troops in, but then also swing around to the left of the Iraqi front and annihilate them. And he also, again, one of the main frameworks of maneuver warfare is eliminating communications and reducing the enemy's ability to observe, orient, decide, and act. And he had us go after all their comms and eliminated their air force before they could do anything. And as a result, that the first Gulf War, I mean, I don't like war, but regardless of whether you liked it or not, America was very successful in the first Gulf War. I think the early '90s when that happened. And it's I think that that those principles, as it pertains to the OODA loop specifically, those translate into any type of conflict. In business is conflict. A sales conversation is conflict. A game of chess is a conflict. An argument with a spouse or a friend is conflict. And what's happening in any conflict is both parties are OODA looping. You're observing the information around you. You're orienting. You're deciding, what does this information mean? You're making a decision based on that information. And then based on that, you're taking an action. The faster that you can make a decision and then take an action, the faster you're going to be able to loop back around, do something that changes your surroundings and allows you to OODA loop again. And when you're in conflict with someone, if one party is OODA looping very slow and then the other is OODA looping very quickly, eventually, because everything that this party moving quickly is doing is changing the surroundings of this other one, eventually even if they're massively numerically inferior, eventually they'll get inside the other, their opponent's decision-making loop, and they'll beat them. It happened to the United States in the Vietnam War. We had the Viet Cong and I think the NWA at the time, or NVA, outnumbered 5-1 or 10-1 at various points in the war, and they ended up beating us. It was because they had better principles than us, and they were OODA looping faster. So how does the OODA loop apply to business? Well, it does in a lot of ways. So when you're making all these 300 dials, you should be observing what happens on the phone, orienting what it means, listening to your calls, getting feedback, doing things to orient more effectively. The orient part is the most important part of the OODA loop. And it's funny, I was raised on this because my dad was in the Air Force. Although most Air Force people don't know what the OODA loop is. It's very well known amongst Marines because they have less budget than the other parts of the Department of Defense, so they have to make more of less. But yeah, this has been something that I've thought about for well over a decade. But a week ago at this point, I think Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz, he was tweeting about this. I think it went viral. All the VCs are talking about it now. I think it's funny, but it's so true because the most successful companies, I believe, are the ones that give their salespeople, their engineers, and everyone on the team the space and the direction that you should be iterating as fast as possible and looking to see what feedback the market or your prospects or your software gives you, and then using that to make further decisions. And you should bias towards action. You should bias towards going through as many two-way doors as possible. So where if you go through a one-way door, like with the product, you make this one architectural decision, you're not going to be able to change that. It's kind of done. But as a two-way door, you can do this thing, and then if it doesn't work, you can just go back through it and try something else. The beauty of sales is that every new sales call is a new a new two-way door, unless you say something that you really shouldn't, and you get in big trouble. So most of these are two-way doors. So you should experiment as much as you can. Get sales courses, try different things, and see what works for your particular product or audience.
I love that you compared sales to a conflict because it does get messy, especially on cold calls, and people who are so caught up on the need for approval or overly relational, overly analytical can really hold themselves back from ultimately taking action, which is important. And applying the term, did you say OODA or OODA loop? How do you say it?
OODA loop.
So yeah, OODA loop, like applying those combative approaches it sounds like won the Gulf War for us. You can actually apply that to observe and make adjustments and experiment in a cold call to be more effective. So I thought that was such a unique perspective, and I appreciate you sharing that. I haven't heard that in maybe 200 podcasts. So I love that you brought a whole different angle to how to be successful in sales today. And I want to crescendo the conversation talking about Job Machine. Clearly, you got addicted to helping people get jobs, which is really transformative work. It can change their whole trajectory and future. So I'm going to bake maybe a few questions into one. Like, what got you so addicted to helping people get jobs? Like, what lights you up about it? And then roll that into talking about, Job Machine and how it solves some of the biggest bottlenecks in the job hunt process.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier in our conversation that I had, after I graduated from college, I was waiting tables and living in my parents' basement. And the reason that happened is because of one of the reasons that people who should get a job don't, uh, which is that I had very unrealistic expectations. I wanted right out of college to be a futures trader. Futures, for those who don't know, are contracts on commodities and financial instruments, where you're locking in a price for like a bushel of corn or a barrel of oil 3 6 months into the future, as an example. And people who are market makers and buy and sell these things, it's a zero sum game. So for every winner, there's a loser. But the people who are really good make a lot of money. And before like when my model for the world and making money was a little less developed, that seemed like a really cool thing to do. By the way, there's absolutely value in people who are market making. It reduces the bid-ask spread. It makes it easier to buy and sell these things, which adds value to manufacturers and consumers of these commodities and these instruments. But, at least for me, what I do in tech, it's much more fulfilling to me. I feel like I get to see and experience the impact that I'm making for people, which for me is really important. But yeah, I wanted to go do that. What I didn't understand about being even a junior trader in the futures industry and the financial markets is that, especially in 2011 when I graduated, that was it was a challenging time. We were coming off the back end of the financial crisis, and you usually had to go and be like a back office or middle office operations person to get your foot in the door, unless you went to MIT and double majored in computer science and econ. And I did none of those three things. So I ended up struggling mightily getting a job. I applied to all these jobs, didn't get a single interview. And I thought that I was a failure. I thought it was because my GPA wasn't high enough, or I went to the wrong college. What I didn't realize is that if I would have applied to the right jobs, I would have gotten interviews immediately. But I just didn't know any better. So somebody took me under their wing. He previously gotten a job in investment banking, and he was working in Congress for a while as like a legislative aide. Then he was a consultant, and he offered to help me. And he taught me all these things. I became master successful in my job search. I got a job that I was really excited about, and he changed my life. And I got done, and I was like, man, like, you changed my life. How do I ever repay you? And he was like, listen, man, the reason I'm helping you is because someone helped me get into investment banking, and they changed my life. And I asked them the exact same question, and they said, go help other people. So he told me to pay it forward. And I took the mandate seriously, and I started helping people in their job search. And over the next decade, I helped hundreds of people get jobs for free. And yeah, it made a huge difference in my life. I got to help people. I got to see their lives and their careers grow. And I learned how painful it can be to get a job for so many people. So in the late 20-teens, when I decided to start a business around business and tech, I focused on a problem that I was very familiar with. And I decided to help resolve the pain associated with getting a job.
So one of the pains is going for the wrong role and knowing how to match up with the right role to really reduce the friction to getting over the edge. What are some of the other most burning pains that our job seekers are facing? And then from there, of course, I naturally want to roll this into, job machines and your AI, your tech, and how you help people.
Is it a safe assumption that a lot of the people watching this are salespeople and or salespeople who want to start a business at some point?
Yeah, so we're based on the data, 20 to 40 somethings, in tech sales, looking to break into tech sales. And I have one more question after this about, well, maybe it's two, how you ended up taking the leap to entrepreneurship and your advice to your former self starting as an entrepreneur. Because the last thing I'll say is that a lot of the audience not only want to get into tech sales or make a lot of money in tech sales, they want to use it as a path to entrepreneurship like you and I did. Okay. So just know that's where we're going to head, but a little more context on who the audience is. But back
Okay.
to, like what are the pain points in the job hunt beyond just matching up with the right job, and what do you guys offer to help?
Sure. Sure. I'll save the latter half of my thoughts on that for the next question that apparently you're going to ask me. So as far as why people don't get jobs, it's a whole litany of things. So a lot of the times they don't have a good resume. And by the way, they might have a great resume, but it's a bad resume for the type of job that they want. And another issue is that they don't want the right type of job. They may think they know the right type of job they want. It might be the right kind of job, but they don't know the right job titles to go after. So they're searching for the wrong things, or their resume isn't tailored that way. Then they may be looking for the jobs that they should be going after. They want to get in the wrong places, and maybe going and just applying to one-click options as opposed to going to companies' career pages and completing the the painful 30 to 45-minute workday applications and completing those. They also may stop there. But like what you really should do if you really want a job is you should find those people on LinkedIn, the hiring manager and their managers, and add all of them and message them directly and let them know like why, enthusiastically tell them why you believe you're a great fit, and ask for them to connect you with the hiring manager or the recruiter. And then some people don't check their email fast enough. Like they get an email saying, I'd like to interview. What they don't know is that a lot of talent acquisition people, they have X number of people that they can set screening calls with. And after they've hit, let's say 10 or 15 screening calls, if you respond too slowly, you are not going to be one of those people. They're going to ignore you. And people are like, oh, recruiters are so disrespectful. They have a quota. You did not respond fast enough. You are no longer a part of their quota. They may not interview effectively. The interviewing is absolutely it's a sales pitch, but again, it's not a sales pitch. It's a sales conversation where you're looking to identify what problems, what challenges is this hiring manager looking to solve by bringing this person into this role, and you have to understand those things effectively. So you need to be able to understand not just from the job description, but by asking, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I saw that this is what the job description says. And also I find that oftentimes when I actually talk to somebody who's hiring for the role, what they're looking for is a little different than what's in the job description itself. So, if you were to name 2 or 3 different things, attributes, skills, things that you'd be looking for in the person you're hiring for this role, things that would make a huge difference for you, what are 2 or 3 things you'd want to see in that person that would make a big difference? And then, by the way, that person will tell you, well, I'm actually looking for X, Y, and Z. And it's most of the time totally different than what's on the job description. So when you frame it that way, you learn these things and you get you move along through the process. And so there's other nuances, but those are a lot of the main things. And yeah, the funny thing is that basically all those except like actually getting dressed for the interview, you can automate with technology now. And that's what we've done with Job Machine.
So what is Job Machine? Like, how does it automate the process? Just a high level. We don't need to get in the technical leads, and who knows, maybe we do a demo in a future conversation. But it seems like you're applying AI to automate this process. Give us a little bit of the sausage making. I'm hungry. I'm weird too. Anyways, just give us a little bit, and then we'll round out with some thoughts on the entrepreneurial journey.
For sure, man. You're in good company. So so what the Job Machine does is we automate every step of getting a job except actually getting dressed for the interview. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So what we do is by the way, we do it for institutions primarily. By the time people watch this, we'll probably have it to where consumers can sign on. But one of the things that makes us really unique is that we work with institutions that have a vested financial interest in getting people jobs. billions and billions, tens of billions get spent each year in the United States by schools, workforce agencies, basically unemployment offices, outplacement firms to get people jobs. And they have to, or they lose access to funding and for all intents and purposes go out of business. And they hire dozens of, or in some cases, hundreds of people, full-time employees to help people get jobs. And many of them are amazing. And some of them, maybe not so much, but all of them have the tools that they have to use. It is incredibly challenging, like the job that they have in front of them. It's really, really hard to be like responsible for one person to place 200 or 300 people in a year. It's hard. I know, because I used to do it. And, the way that that's traditionally done is people will help them with their resume and then basically bug them until they find out if they got a job or not. What we do is we'll take an Excel file of hundreds of people, name, email, phone number, and then their maybe the type of job they're supposed to get, or sometimes if it's an unemployment office, doesn't have to be a specific type of job, just whatever. Either way, during the onboarding process, after someone gets reached out to by us, they click a link and they upload a resume. Instead of there being 27 steps to go and onboard, we use AI to basically match all the stuff on their resume, fill out the whole intake form, and we go, hey, we have almost everything we need to sign you up. Can you answer us these questions? And the AI agent kind of talks to them and guides them through the process. Great. We take that resume. By the way, we also ask them, what type of job do you want? We take that resume and we make it basically perfect. Like, when I say perfect, I mean, these resumes are outstanding. And once that's done, like, we take that resume and then and the type of job they're looking for, and we go, okay, in the area that they're going after, what are the types of jobs that this person should go to get in order to achieve their goals? And if they want to be the president of the United States, that's great. And also, this person may have a 15-month career gap. And, most recently it was, in middle market tech sales. It's like, yeah, you got some stuff to do. So let's go backwards from that and go, these are jobs that we believe you're going to be successful with. Then we go out and we apply those jobs for them automatically. And we make email accounts for every single person that we onboard. We make phone numbers for them and we manage those on their behalf. So we set them tons of interviews. And employers don't even know we exist. So we schedule the interviews, we guide them through the whole process. They have to show up. We also don't complete assessments for them. That would be unethical. Like, they have to, if there's AI interviews, they do those on their own. We're not making this person different than what they are. We're actually have a lot of human QA that goes into place, making sure that the AI is being honest about who they are and honest about their experience. And also, all this waste of like filling out 30 to 45-minute applications goes away. So, like, if you think about the job market, the employment market, it's kind of a David and Goliath situation where employers, because they don't know how to screen or hire people effectively, they need as many people in their system as possible, and they use AI and machine learning and like billions of dollars of tools to screen through and find the people they want to talk to. And in order to do that, they take little David over here and they say, hey, you're going to have to apply to 200 jobs to get hired, which is crazy. And it shouldn't be that way. And thankfully, it doesn't have to anymore, because the candidates aren't doing that anymore. And it's great because it makes it to where the right people are going to end up in the right roles. And when they interview, the person has to show up. They have to do a great job. They have to convince the employer that they're going to match. But we set so much opportunity for people. We've built a very effective and very scalable system. The big thing with us is that we're not focused on just like helping people get into tech sales or helping military veterans without college degrees get jobs in IT, which we've done both of those things successfully. But we made it agnostic to where we can get basically anyone, any type of job. And we've built it with the architecture fundamentally to where one day we're going to be able to support hundreds of thousands of concurrent users and tens of millions of job applications. And our goal is to make it to where, like, I think the future is probably the next 5 years, to where one day when you want a job, you're going to talk probably through natural language. You're just going to talk. I think most user interfaces are probably not going to exist anymore because of how good natural language is getting. And you're going to say, hey, get me a job doing this. And the LLM of choice is going to go kind of work through that process, but it's not going to be able to go and fulfill these things because there's a lot of technical hurdles that it has to overcome, like getting access to your personal email. Most people probably aren't going to give their AI agent access to all of their emails and their social security number, all these things. Some probably will, they probably shouldn't. But whether it's us or somebody else, I believe it's going to be us. It's going to plug into. I think it's going to plug into it via API to tools like Job Machine or us, and it's going to run fulfillment for that. Because who's not going to plug directly into Claude or GPT or whatever are large employers, and there has to be piping, there has to be infrastructure that connects all those things, and that's what we're looking to build.
Before we finish up with entrepreneurial inspiration, I want to encourage the audience to connect with Brandon. I linked his LinkedIn profile in the description of this video, and also check out Job Machines, link the website in the description. And hey, keep Tech Sales Accelerator in your back pocket for interview coaching to complement Job Machines. And any other things, by the way, in terms of calls to action, like resources that our audience can connect with on your end?
No, I mean, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I mean, I definitely encourage people if they found any of the Tony Robbins stuff compelling. I don't get any commission for this, but I love people changing their lives and being more productive members of society. So I definitely recommend checking out one of his Unleash the Power Within events. He only does one a year anymore. He's getting up there. He's almost 70, I think, now, and he's a billionaire many times over. But he still does one a year in the U.S. I think the next one's going to be this November, 2026.
Wow.
In Miami.
Yeah. In Miami?
Yeah.
Dude, no way. And we talked about going together, and I actually feel pretty confident I'm going to be going with you. And I mean, the fact that I'm in Miami, I'm in Naples, a couple hours away. I mean, no excuse. So I appreciate you getting us all excited, including myself, about the opportunity of going to a Tony Robbins seminar, especially when, he's 70 and he's still got the energy, but we don't know how many are left, and it's only once a year.
Yeah, 100%, man. The only other thing I'd say, and I only say this because you mentioned that some of the people on here are salespeople who want to make the jump into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I wanted to. The final question, my friend, is: at what point did you know it was time to make the leap? It's just always interesting for people to hear, like, what was the catalyst? And the other thing is, like, looking back to your younger self, getting ready to start as an entrepreneur. What are your top lessons? I could say, what are your top 3, but we don't have to put a number to it. Like, what's your inspiration? What are your lessons? So just summarizing, tying a bow on the multi-part question, how did you know when it was time to make the leap? And what would you tell your younger self just getting started to really enjoy and succeed in entrepreneurship?
Anytime that I got comfortable, I knew it was time to go and do the next thing. I think that it's really important, especially when you're early in your career, to focus on acquiring skills. Force times leverage equals work. So you can go start a business, but if your leverage is bad, you're just going to run in circles. And also, one of the things that I noticed in my first sales job in Austin, I got comfortable and I knew I need to go do something else. I'm not learning anymore. I'm great at this job. I can hit top rep without even working that hard. That's a huge problem. It meant it was time to go someplace else where I was the worst person in the room, and I could go continue to learn. But then I think you get a certain point where when you know how to sell effectively, you know how to communicate, understand, you get a little bit of knowledge about how businesses work. I think it's good to just go do it. When I stopped working at Trendcut, I went and I started a sales agency for consumer products, and I fell flat on my face. I was making progress. I would have made like a great lifestyle business, but through doing that, I started to learn about things like, EBITDA. I understood what margins were. I learned what recurring revenue was. I understood why organizations that have like SaaS companies that have 90% gross margins and recurring revenue get very different valuations, especially if they're growing really quickly, than steady 20% growth a year, 30% EBITDA margin, like company, which, by the way, is very valuable, especially to a private equity fund. But it's going to be that company is going to be it's going to be a lot less interesting to, like, let's say, a venture capital fund, because they're two different types of businesses and both have their merits. At least for like the outcome that I wanted, one of those paths made a lot more sense. And and then like I went back to get another job. Like this one, I worked at a company called Gecko Robotics for about 3.5 years, and I launched their oil and gas division. We were selling robots to oil refineries to make sure they didn't blow up. And I learned a ton through that, but I took that job because even though I would have made considerably more money selling enterprise software, I wanted to become more familiar with the process of going into a market where we didn't have a solution for it and working directly with engineers to design solutions that were going to A, be useful, and B, that had a like were valuable enough, because value can be measured in dollars and cents. If it has no price, it's probably worthless. So going in there and figuring out like how many people have this problem, how much are they willing to pay for it based on the amount of value that you're creating. Like if it's reducing the costs, if you can reduce the cost by 90% and get them a better result, people will buy that. If you not, why would they switch? It's less known, and you're not helping them do something better, cheaper, or faster. So I went and I did that job because I knew I was going to learn. And then ultimately, I think one of the best things I think one of the most useful things I tell them to anybody who wants to start their own business is go and start building something on the side. Spend your nights and your weekends going and working on this thing. Go validate that there's a market. Go from 0 to 1, throw up an LLC. It takes like 15 minutes, and open a Stripe account and get somebody to exchange currency for something that you're doing. And when you validate that and you get enough people exchanging currency for it to where it seems like it makes sense, run the rest of your personal life to where you're saving and you're not building a lifestyle around all the money you're making in tech sales. Because that was one of the things that I did wrong when I started a business the first time back in early 2018. I was making the most money I ever had in my life, and I was spending all of it. And I learned my lesson. The next time I went, I bought a house. I rented all the rooms out to my buddies. I'm not necessarily recommending that anymore. Interest rates are kind of a mess right now. But at the time, it made a lot of sense. I was getting paid to live in my house, and I had basically no expenses. I just cut everything, and I paid off credit cards, and I saved. And that gave me the launch pad to go build Job Machine. I've put almost $1 million of my own money into building this company. Every last dollar that I have. And it's going really well now. And there have been many times in the last 4 years when it was not going very well. I remember one time being down to my last $38. I actually had 1,000, but I put the last 1,000 in to hit payroll.
Wow.
And it was that's happened a bunch of times through building this. It's not easy, and you only give yourself that opportunity by delaying gratification and saving and being strategic about how you run your life.
Yeah, well, you made it up to the Skyrise in Austin, Texas. I'm very familiar, and it actually brings back a lot of nostalgia to see your background. What a great city. And thank you so much for sharing your heart, your wisdom, your inspiration, things that can really transform people's tech sales careers, their personal lives, like saving a relationship with a family member, and giving people encouragement on the realities of entrepreneurship and showing us what's possible. So again, I encourage the audience to check you out on LinkedIn, check out Job Machine, linked in the description of this video. Of course, give Tech Sales Accelerator a peek too. And to the audience, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And I respect you for investing in your personal and professional development by watching this conversation. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what things that Brendan shared that really stood out. And to your guys' success in tech sales and in life, happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.